All right, I know we've talked about this
Yeah.
of you coming on, but I'm so excited because I feel A, your story is really impactful and I think will help so many. B, the episode I did around infertility and IVF and the emotions around it all really resonated with so many people. And I haven't done I did one so long ago about surrogacy, but I haven't done a recent episode on surrogacy. And what better person than someone who I'm so close with to come on and talk about
Thanks,
it.
Cam. I'm excited.
So welcome
Thank you
to
for
Conversations with
having
Cam.
me.
I want to provide some context for people of
Yeah.
like us.
Yeah.
So when did you, okay, well, Joe has a best friend from growing up, Brandon.
Yeah.
Who was your husband.
Yes.
But when did you guys start dating? When did we meet?
Okay, I think we met, it was 10 summers ago. So what was that? 2015. Yeah. I had just turned 23. He had just turned 25. And I feel like I remember we met on your, like we had met before your birthday. Because I remember we went out for your birthday.
Oh, the night of the Mexican titty
Yes.
shop. Oh my God. Okay, for context, I really was trying to make this dive bar my local watering hole. Like I
Right.
wanted it to be my spot.
Yeah.
And like it never did.
It didn't
and
land.
it shouldn't have,
Yeah.
but whatever. And we went out for drinks. You guys were there.
Yeah, we
Bina
were
was
there. Yeah.
And her friend.
I feel like
yeah, someone had a
Deanna
friend.
was there.
No, Deanna wasn't there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Someone had a friend. Was it you or was it Emily?
I didn't.
Okay.
It was just me and Brandon.
And basically at this dive bar, you can order a shot of the night and it's bartender's choice.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to ask what it is.
Yeah.
But they're free, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And I was like, can I have 6 of them?
Yeah.
And she was like, okay. And she goes, it's a Mexican titty. And I was like, what is that? And it was tequila and milk.
Yeah.
And you had to drink it before it curdled. And it was the most foul thing I've
It was
ever put in my
disgusting.
mouth.
And I like didn't know you yet. So I just like was like, oh shit, I guess I have to do this.
Who is this?
I was like,
bitch?
damn it.
Okay, so that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I feel like we just became friends through them, but through
Yes.
doing stuff together,
Yes.
then through our weddings and all of the things.
Yeah. 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 I was always like a little, well, I'm a year below you. So
Right.
I like got married the year after you. I got engaged the year after you. So
Right.
yeah.
And then I've mentioned you in episodes because
Yes.
in the episode that I just mentioned with Dr. Molly Burritz, and I'll put it in the show notes because I think if you're interested in this topic, it's a must listen.
Agree.
I mentioned our experience as friends navigating pregnancy and infertility alongside each other and how to go about that and how we approached it and how I feel like I did some things well and I feel like I fucked other things up, and I want to get into that. But before we get into that journey,
Yeah.
I want to talk about what led you to surrogacy. So whatever you're comfortable sharing,
Yeah.
how did you end up going the surrogate route? Like what led up to that decision?
Totally. Okay, so we started to try for a baby in the summer of, it was after COVID or kind of during COVID, 2020.
2021?
It was when Liam was like 3 months old.
2021.
2021. Okay, so we started to try in the summer of 2021. And I am the type of person who, like, I've wanted to be a mom since I was literally 11 years old. So, like, this was, like, I was so excited. And I felt like I was ready. I was excited. Like, some of my friends had started having babies, but I was kind of on the earlier side of things. And so we tried and it worked on like maybe the 3rd or 4th time, and we were like over the moon excited. Like it was around the holidays, so our first appointment at the OB was in January of 2022. So we went to the appointment like giddy and excited, and it was clear that it wasn't going well. Like
From
I
the reaction
didn't
of the doctor?
Yes.
Okay.
So I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that the reaction of the doctor when she did the first ultrasound, she was quiet, and then she left the room, and then she brought in another doctor, and they kind of were like, you might have just gotten the dates wrong. Like, it's measuring a little smaller than where we thought it should be, but like there is a really light heartbeat. Why don't you come back in a week? So of course I'm petrified.
Right.
And upset, but we go back, and then we find out that the pregnancy isn't progressing. We ended up actually switching doctors during that time, and that's when I had to get my first DNC at 8 weeks.
For anyone who's not familiar, can you explain what a DNC is?
Yes. So a DNC is an abortion.
Yeah. Which is why.
And it's medically
is so important.
Yeah, it's medically necessary. Like some people's bodies don't miscarry on their own. And I needed it out of my system.
Yeah.
Emotionally and medically.
Well, medically, you can't keep it in there.
So the hormone, HCG hormone, is the hormone that you produce when you're pregnant, and sometimes your body doesn't realize that it's not pregnant anymore. So I was basically carrying a not viable pregnancy. So I had my first DNC, and then it took like months for my body to get back to baseline, and I just didn't feel normal at all. And so I went to my new OB, and she ran a bunch of blood work and figured out that I had an undiagnosed thyroid autoimmune disorder called Hashimoto's, which is really dangerous to have when you're pregnant if it's not monitored. So I then was sent to an endocrinologist and kind of went down that road. We had to pause on trying because I needed to get that under control because it would have been dangerous for me to get pregnant again. So we had to pause for a few months, which felt brutal. It just felt like my timeline kept getting pushed and pushed, and I again, people around me were getting pregnant and having babies, and it just felt like, for me, it was like my birthday or Mother's Day or the holidays when years were going by, and I kept thinking that I would either be pregnant or have a baby.
I also think we had friends, and not to speak for you, but we had friends who had a baby the original due date of your first pregnancy.
Yes.
Which I imagine would be very hard to witness when you're talking about timelines, because you're watching these kids get older and older and thinking, well, that was supposed to be what I.
Yes, exactly. So that's really hard. And that, on what would have been the due date was a really hard day. Yeah. Seeing babies being born around that time, seeing pregnancy announcements when those pregnancies hit the second trimester. All of that was really, really hard. But we were still remaining hopeful. And our doctor was like, once your numbers for your thyroid are under control, you have the green light to start trying again. So that happened in June, and we got pregnant again in August. It was actually right before we went to the Jackson Hole wedding. Yep. And then that didn't work. I didn't need a DNC for that one. That one, my body miscarried on its own. Then from there, we decided to go to a fertility clinic. And it felt, for me, the way I coped with everything was always knowing what my next step was going to be. Okay. If this doesn't work, then we'll go to a fertility clinic. If this doesn't work, then we'll explore surrogacy. So our next step was a fertility clinic, which we went to at the end of August. And we did a whole workup. The doctor basically told us to continue trying naturally, and that they would monitor early pregnancy. And so I got pregnant again in October. That didn't work again. And then...
Was that a DNC or a natural miscarriage?
That was a natural miscarriage. Okay. And then they ran more tests. So they did, I forget the exact medical term of it, but they did a more... I had to go to a different hospital to get a more...
extensive.
Yeah. And they found out that my reproductive organs never fully developed.
Which is, I just don't understand how
I know.
I know we've talked about this.
30 years old, you just never
That's
know
how you
that.
find out.
Yeah. So that was shocking, like completely shocking. And I remember my doctor called and she said, it's still possible for you to have a baby. It's still possible for you to be pregnant. But my problem wasn't getting pregnant.
Of
it
course.
was carrying the pregnancy. And so she still was feeling really optimistic, but was like, IVF is the next option because we need to set your body up for success. Mm-hmm. So that was in November. And then we went through the process of the egg retrieval and creating embryos, which is a really grueling process. Mm-hmm. It felt both like mentally, emotionally, and physically hard. I think
it is.
Yeah. Like I wanted, at that point, I should have had like a 4-month-old baby.
Right.
And it was just felt so unfair. So we did that. We luckily had healthy embryos so it's a whole process. And then January, I prepped for my first transfer. It was a canceled transfer because my body just didn't get to where it needed to be.
Sorry.
So
meaning that your body isn't ready to have the embryo implanted?
Okay. So I went through doing IVF, like the prep for it, like the shots. And I think it was a week before the transfer, I went in. Basically, my doctor was like, I'm not going to implant an embryo unless I'm confident that the environment is optimal.
Right. They don't want to waste an embryo.
Yeah. And she was like, your body just isn't really, like, it's just not right now. My lining wasn't getting where it needed to be. So then I had to wait for, again, my body to go back to baseline. I feel like we were like talking a lot during this time. I was like going to acupuncture. Right. I went gluten-free. I stopped drinking. I was like doing everything in my control, like grasping for anything I could. So then we started it again, and it was in March of what, I guess now it's 2023.
2023, I think we're in. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're feeling good. Like, we're feeling really confident. We're like, this is going to work. We had a positive pregnancy test. We had a few.
So you did a transfer.
We did a transfer. So you do a transfer, and you have to wait like 9 to 10 days to find out if it's stuck. And that's when you get a positive pregnancy test. So at that point, you feel like you've been pregnant for years. Like right. That week and a half is never ending. And then from there, you go into the doctor to track your levels to make sure that the pregnancy is progressing. And then at a fertility clinic, you're able to get early ultrasounds. Okay. So I think our first ultrasound was at like 6 or 7 weeks instead of like the 8 to 10. So we had a few good ultrasounds. We like saw the heartbeat. Like we were feeling good, and we got the furthest we had ever gotten. Like we got past 8 weeks, and then we went in and no more heartbeat. So at that point, my doctor, I looked at her and I was like, should we consider surrogacy? And she said, yes.
And sorry, for this one, did you have another DNC?
Yes. Okay. This one I had another DNC. And this one actually I had to have two DNCs because the first one, it didn't clear everything out. And so I had to go under twice. And then I actually was sent to a specialist in Boston who essentially did another DNC. So I really had 3. And it took me until the next December to get back to baseline. So like 9 months. Wow. I think that's another real misconception of fertility is like you don't just bounce back. At all. Like it's a really long process. The hormonal crash is like unexplainable. And just it takes a really long time. You're going into your fertility clinic every other day to get your numbers checked, and like that sucks. Like
Of course it does.
Like, so that was really hard. And then I think important to note also is the health diagnosis that I found out when we started the fertility clinic. My doctor said I could carry, but it would be a really high risk pregnancy, and I'd likely have to be on bed rest starting in like the beginning of my 3rd trimester.
Wow.
And there was a significant chance of early term delivery. And if for some reason the embryo split into 2, like I absolutely could not carry multiples. That would have been like I would have had to eliminate the pregnancy. So there were a lot of like
huge
risks for me and for the baby. So that was something that we also like really weighed heavy on us. Like the thought of it would have been really like anxiety provoking every step of the way. Like I would have had way more appointments than the normal person. And a risk that the baby could have been delivered as early as like 22 weeks. So it got to the point where I was like, even if this by some miracle happens, I'm never going to be able to breathe. Like, how can I continue to take this chance? So that's when we moved on to surrogacy.
And I witnessed all of this firsthand, and I mean, I know I've told you this. None of it's fair.
Yeah.
It all fucking sucks.
Yeah.
You are so strong, beyond words strong. And
thank you.
I think what you said is so true, that we just envision, oh, you have a miscarriage. Okay, bounce back. You can try again. No one expects after a pregnancy.
Yeah.
It's a pregnancy. There's so much happening medically that you can't just bounce back and try again right away.
Right.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, any of the things.
Right.
Especially with all that you underwent. When you guys decided, okay, we're doing the surrogate route, what does that process look like? The actual process of finding a surrogate, matching. I mean, I think that's such
process.
An unknown for people.
Yeah.
And I know from talking to you that you felt this way, overwhelmed of where do I even begin?
Yes, totally. I also think that something I want to hit on is surrogacy, I think, is looked at as like a choice. Like, oh, you took the easy way out, or like you could have kept trying. But it really was like medically necessary. And I really think it should be viewed as similarly to like people move on to IVF. People try IUI.
I would never think that someone would. Do you feel people say that or think that?
100%. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Like it was like the easy way out. Or like if I had kept trying, it would have happened. Yeah.
Well, that's not right. I hope you know that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Like I hope you're aware of that.
I know. So surrogacy was like truly, and this is another thing that I want to kind of debunk, it was my worst case scenario. Like it was last resort. Like if you had told me 2 years ago that I couldn't even comprehend. Like my friends and family knew to not even like utter like the word, because I wasn't ready to give up the dream of like being pregnant and carrying my own baby and delivering. And I really had to get there on my own. Like I had to live those experiences to come to terms with it. So when I did come to terms with it, the process is, it's a long process. So the first step obviously is finding a fertility clinic. So we had that already. We had our embryos that were healthy and tested. Fertility clinics have an arm that like we had a designated person that oversaw their surrogacy program. So we went through an agency, and an agency basically is a broker for matching intended parents with surrogates.
Okay.
And
is that required to have an agency?
It's not required. You can do it on your own.
Oh, like if you had a friend.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, exactly. Like, I think that if you, right, like a friend or a cousin or a sister.
Someone you knew.
I do think, though, without, like, it felt overwhelming in general.
Right.
I think I can't imagine doing it without an agency because they just help every step of the way in terms of, like, the contracts, the medical, like, all the things.
Are you comfortable sharing the agency you used if you
Yes,
liked them?
Your Fertility Advocate.
Okay.
I loved them. And instantly when I talked to Megan as the founder, it just didn't feel as scary.
Okay. A win.
They very much like hold your hand along the way, and it's like it's a step-by-step process. So first you create like a bio about yourself. So we like sent photos, we kind of told our story, how we got here, who we are, what we like to do, and then that is shared with potential surrogates, and then we receive the same from surrogates.
It's sending me back to Chandler and Monica and Friends.
Yeah. So then we found a few women that we liked on paper, and then their medical records get sent to your doctor. So my doctor reviewed all of the potential surrogates. To be a surrogate, you have to have literally a perfect bill of health. Like, you have to have carried your own children.
Which I did not know until you went through this.
Yeah.
And I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's also wild because then you're doing this and being a parent.
Yeah.
Like, that to me
it's insane.
Is a whole other layer for the Yeah.
It is. I want to get into that because being a surrogate, it's like the greatest gift you can give someone.
They're angels.
I can't even, like, it's unbelievable. And so you have to have had your own children, and they have to have been full term and no complications. Like, you have to have like a perfect pregnancy. And you have to be like in a certain age range, a certain BMI, really like basically the most fertile, perfect body. And our fertility clinic was known to be really, really conservative. They declined a lot of people. And so by some miracle, we had one approved quickly. Like, it was like 2 months after we started working with, or 3 months after we started working with the agency. So from there, once our doctor medically approved her, then we met her on Zoom. And that was proctored by the agency. And you are meeting this complete stranger that, in theory, is going to literally play probably the biggest part in your life. And you're like diving right in. Like, you're talking about like everything from why we are here and our road and our like desired communication styles. You have to talk through what happens if you have to terminate the pregnancy, who will be in the delivery room. Like, you're talking about everything, because if there are any red flags where you really like don't see eye to eye on something, that's not going to be a good match.
And you have to figure it out then.
And you have to figure it out. So you kind of try to like get through all of that. We just had this gut feeling when we met our surrogate that it was right. Then from there, it's a lot of hurry up and wait.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah, it was, every step felt long. So then we had to go through legal contracts, negotiations, escrow, insurance. There were a lot of like that type of things that honestly the agency played a huge role. Then we flew her out to meet with our doctor. So that was another step. So our doctor approved her medical records, but then they have to come for an in-person visit. And we met her in person. We went to dinner. It was so just like crazy and surreal. So then from there, we have to sign the contracts. And then we start looking at timelines. had a scheduled transfer date. It was actually literally, I think, like 2 days before your second was born in October.
End of October?
Yeah.
Yep.
And the transfer was canceled because medicine wasn't working how it should have. So that obviously was disappointing. But okay, we move on. So we wait another 3-4 weeks. And then she's flown to New York. We see her. We go to the appointment. We are doing the transfer. I just remember I was sitting next to her and Brandon was sitting next to me. And I was holding her hand, and my surrogate and I were both crying, and it was so surreal. Mm-hmm. And then you wait, like she flies back.
Right. And that's something I want to talk about is she's far away.
Yeah. Yeah. That was really hard. Well, I should say the twins part.
Right. I literally was waiting for you to be like, when we entered,
okay.
When we put in 2 embryos.
Yeah. That was kind of crazy.
It was approved by everyone.
No, of course. So, again, like, I want a baby so desperately at this point, and anyone who's there understands, like, it's like, I can't even explain the desire. You would do anything. So, IVF, they used to implant multiple embryos and
again,
just
back
hope.
To friends.
Right.
Phoebe had 3 in there.
Right. And just hope that like one of them sticks. Now they really don't do that because multiples are just higher risk pregnancies. So in our contracts, like it was always only 1 embryo. Literally a week before the transfer, I said to my husband, would you consider twins?
What was Brandon's reaction to that?
So, okay, my argument was if you implant 2, it raises your chances from like 65% to 85%. And then it's like a 50-50 chance of if it's going to be twins.
Okay.
Brandon was like, they're not going to approve it. Like, it says in the documents that they'll only do a single embryo. He was like, you can ask.
He's probably like, yeah, sure, Pear. Go ask.
Yeah.
There's no chance.
They approved. So anyway, that was like a whirlwind. Basically a week before the scheduled transfer, we had to change all of our legal contracts. We had to confirm with our agency, confirm. Well, first, the huge part was we had to confirm with our surrogate that she was okay with doing a twin pregnancy. And she literally was like, let's do it. Like, I thought you'd never ask.
She's like you.
She literally.
Like, let's just go.
She was so excited.
She
was like, why not? Like, on the initial screening, one of the questions that they asked was like, what if this pregnancy turns into multiples?
Right.
And apparently she remembered that my face like lit up. I was like, that would be the dream. So we end up implanting 2, which was wild. And then the 10 days later, it was right before Thanksgiving, we get a call that she took like an at-home pregnancy test, and it wasn't 10 days later. I think it was like 6 or 7 days later. It was like really early. And it was like very positive. And so like we're feeling good. She gets the blood work. Everything's progressing well. And it's not until the first ultrasound that we know whether it's 1 or 2. So that was kind of crazy because I wanted to so desperately.
Right.
Saying this all like so excited because it's just crazy to think back to it. But my anxiety was like never before. I felt like I quite literally had my 2 like humans living across the country.
You did?
Yeah. I had to completely let go of control. I had experienced what can go wrong.
Right.
So every single appointment, really, like, honestly, until they were in my arms, was so, like, fearful and just anxiety inducing, and, like, to the point where it was, like, almost like paralyzing.
Yeah.
And I think that is the hardest part for people who go through fertility challenges, is you lose the joy. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what Dr. Burt said so well in the episode, where she was like, you know, everyone has these fears of worst case scenarios, but when you've already lived them, it then feels
So
reality.
real. Yeah.
And, well, you know it could happen again because it already happened.
Yes.
And I think what you've always said of feeling like your heart is on the other side of the country is real, because it is.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about after having kids, I'm sure you feel this way.
Yeah.
You feel like a limb of your body is not attached to your body anymore, in the sense of you're constantly thinking of this being and fearful and just worrying about them. And that never goes away, I don't think, when you have children. My mom still would say she feels it with us. And I believe that starts during pregnancy, but when you have your typical pregnancy, it's in your body, so you're always with it. And I think having it outside of your body really does feel like there's a part of you that's somewhere else.
Yes. Yes.
That I'm sure you're constantly thinking about.
Yes. It was constant. And I don't actually think I even comprehended how intense it was during those 9 months
until
I had them. And I felt like it was like the distance just melted away when I had them. And I actually felt like it was actually kind of the reverse. Like, I feel like what you were just explaining is what a lot of women go through in postpartum, is like the realizing that this human is out of your control.
Right. Like, you don't control any of it.
Yeah. Like, and for me, it was weirdly the opposite.
Which
like,
makes sense.
I finally was like, no, they're in my arms. They're safe. They're home. They're here. They're mine.
Yeah.
And I fully trusted my surrogate throughout the entire process.
But even trusting someone fully, you're not there.
Right.
Like, I'm not saying that you didn't trust her, and I know you did, but you're still, something could happen to her that was out of her control.
100%.
Which, same if you're pregnant, but it's,
At least you're the one living it.
You're the one living it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, at any time I could get a call that something
I was with you
happened.
when one happened.
Yeah.
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 So I really, I just think there's so much strength in that you experienced. And I understand you feeling like you didn't fully take a deep breath until they were here.
Yeah.
With the surrogacy, what would you say was the hardest part of the process from start to finish? Was it that?
I think it was that I was so excited for the babies, but I was still so grieving the road that it took to get there, and the other babies that might have been. And my body was still going through so much. It took me years to get back to normal. And so I think that I also think, again, like, I have wanted to be a mom. Like, my sister and I would, like, draw pictures of, like, our families.
I mean, you're
and
the
like
quintessential. And I tell you this all the time. You are the most amazing mom. But we always knew you would be an incredible mom.
Thank you. So grieving that wasn't, and I, don't get me wrong, I know that pregnancy is not, like, an enjoyable experience, but I was grieving that I wouldn't be pregnant.
That's fair to say.
Yeah. And that I was grieving that my road and my journey was not at all what I expected it would be. and that it wasn't fair, and that for every ultrasound, I was like FaceTimed in or had to fly across the country to be there. And even just the outside world, like I was like living my life preparing for twins, like, and I wasn't treated like that at all. So I think just the like rewriting of the script of like releasing all control, like genuinely missing them. Like that's how I felt. Like I missed my babies.
What do you wish you had known, or what do you wish you could tell someone? What advice for someone going through surrogacy? Like say they've gone through the first steps of the fertility journey and they've gotten to a place where they've decided they're going to have a surrogate. Yeah.
I think that it doesn't have to be worst case scenario. It actually can end up being beautiful. By the end, I felt like I had a team of like 20 plus people who were cheering for us. Like my friends, my family, our doctors, our lawyers, her doctors, her family. Like we had a whole team, our agency, a whole team of people that were cheering every step of the way for our success. And that I just kept telling myself, these boys will always know how wanted and loved they are and how hard we worked for them and how many people across the whole country came into play to get them here. And so I think, one, that it can be beautiful, and it can honestly, it like kind of like humans being good humans. Like she did this for a stranger. Like it's incredible. And
the first faith in humanity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that it's okay to feel two emotions at once, that you can be so grateful for your surrogate and that you have the means to do this and that this is a medical option, and grieving that this is the road you have to be on.
Speaking of the means to do this, does insurance cover any of this?
No.
That is fucking insane.
And I think that that is so fundamentally wrong.
Incredibly wrong.
I feel so grateful that we were able to do this. Not everyone can.
Yeah.
The feeling of wanting a child so badly and not being like, that was, I think, the only saving grace is we knew, even though surrogacy, like I didn't want to utter the words, we knew that like we could go to a clinic.
Right.
We could do IVF. We could get a surrogate. And it for a lot of people, surrogacy is not a choice and not an option. And for me, like it was medically required, like it was medically needed.
So why? I feel like someone actually commented on one of the trailers from the Dr. Molly Burt's episode where they were like, I'm just jealous that my friend has a free baby and mine costs $50,000.
Literally.
For IVF. Like that. Yeah. The fact that insurance, we haven't figured this out is wild to me. Yeah. Because it's medically needed by many.
Yes.
What was the process and experience like for you when the surrogate delivered the boys?
It was insane. So it was a twin pregnancy. So there were higher chances of her delivering early. It was a planned C-section, and that was always the plan, was we were going to have a scheduled C-section. So, but we were in the weeks leading up to it, we were like on call. Like we were like ready to hop on a plane if we needed to at any time. So we got there a week early. We saw her, we had dinner with her family. Like we wanted to kind of like settle in. We ended up staying at a hotel that was connected to the hospital. We went for the like pre-op visit, all the things. And then the day of the scheduled C-section, we had to get up at like 4 a.m. And I can't even like explain. I mean, it's like anyone who's given birth or had like I was so excited to just have them in my arms. Mm-hmm. And we were in the room, in the operating room. We were in like the prep room. Like we were there every step of the way. And when the doctor pulled out the first baby, I literally had an out-of-body experience. Like, Brandon still says, he was like, that was crazy. I reached over the surgical site for the baby. He was still connected, like literally still connected.
Let me have it.
And I was like, my baby. It felt like the distance was like literally melting away. And then I more or less was treated like, then we had our own hospital room.
Right.
We were with the babies the whole time. So that felt as normal as it could have.
What was the treatment like from, and I want to talk about this with outsiders, but in the hospital?
Yeah.
Doctors, nurses, like, were you constantly having to explain?
Yeah.
I'm just imagining a nurse walking in.
Yeah. That
obviously it has to be on a chart somewhere that they're not like taking your blood work and doing the things, but still.
Yeah.
No? Did they mess that up?
Okay. A lot. Yeah. That was definitely frustrating. I think that was hard, not only in the hospital in the weeks leading up to the birth, right, and then in the weeks after. Mm-hmm. Like, it was clear that I wasn't like
postpartum.
Yeah. And
we talked about this.
Yeah.
Because I think I warned you of this.
Yes, you did.
I said, just be ready that everyone who sees you for the first 6 weeks, especially, and then probably continuous, will be like, oh my God, you just had twins. You look amazing. Yeah. Because that's what we as a society prioritize.
Totally. And
you've experienced that often?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Insane. And at first, I actually felt the need to complete strangers explain. Mm-hmm. And then finally, I was like, why am I reliving this every multiple times a day?
Well, I think what you said to me, which I respect, is you said if it was someone who had just given birth, I didn't want them to think that I suddenly looked this way.
Yes. I explained that's so what,
but that's because of a different
random
reason.
Strangers and like literally men who would say this too. I just stopped explaining. Thanks. I just said thanks. To moms, really of any age, like child, I explained because I was like, that's not really, it's not fair. Like,
well, you don't, I mean, yes, like you don't want some other person to be like, what the fuck are you dressed like that? Looking like that after having
or just like out of the house.
Out of the house. Yeah, all of
like I was like walking around Central Park, like pushing my cute stroller with like 5-day-olds.
Right.
Like
that. It's a very different experience. Did you, I want to go back to the delivery because did you feel that instant connection with the boys?
Yes.
And were you ever fearful that you wouldn't? Because surrogacy or not, many people don't experience that instant connection.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like I feel like a lot of people, that's why they like give the baby a name first so they can feel like it's like a human. I wasn't scared about that at all. I knew that, I think you said this to me. You were like, you could have like a duckling and like love it. Like, I just knew that I was going to like instantly fall in love. I will say the love, and we've talked about this, is it's indescribable. And it was instant. Instant. All of a sudden, your whole world changes.
Yeah. We've talked within this episode, and I talk about it all the time, of two things can be true at once. In postpartum, and I guess early motherhood, have you experienced that emotion that I believe many women experience after fertility struggles of having a hard time accepting or admitting or coming to terms with things being hard because you worked your ass off to get here and it's all you ever wanted?
Yes, absolutely. I think and this is like sad for me to think about now, in the weeks after we had the boys home and safe, I felt like I didn't deserve to slow down, or I didn't deserve the check-ins. I didn't deserve, like, you like texted, like, can I send you dinner? I didn't deserve that. Like,
why?
I don't know why. And that makes me sad. Like, now I'm like, you had newborn twins. But I just felt like because I wasn't post-surgical, because
I like that term. I've never heard that.
Yeah, like I wasn't going
like
through the hormone.
Yeah.
I was the healthiest version of myself. And I think that is one of my biggest silver linings, is I was able to fully be present with the boys in the weeks and months after, because I didn't have the hormone crash. I did have postpartum anxiety because that's
and you
inherently,
also weren't sleeping. Like,
yeah,
it's,
right.
You still have newborns.
Yes. But I think that I was like, go, and I felt like I needed to like just not slow down my life, because I wanted it so bad, and I wanted to prove that like they could integrate into my life, and this was all I ever wanted, and I was the happiest I could ever be. And that put a lot of pressure on like me and my husband.
Yeah.
And as hard as new motherhood is, and being a twin mom is, and it genuinely like doesn't feel as hard as when I was at my lowest. Like I would
imagine that.
Yeah. Like there were weeks and days and months and years where I like literally couldn't get out of bed. Like I just cried and cried and cried. And that felt so much harder than being like exhausted and overwhelmed.
It's also two very different types of hearts. You know, like one is way more of the emotion, the want, the sadness, the grieving.
Yeah.
And the other is the sheer exhaustion.
Yes.
And
keeping humans alive.
Keeping humans alive.
Yeah.
Can I ask, I want to talk about like how to support a friend who's going through this. Did you have a hard time, and I've wondered this and I imagine an answer.
Yeah.
During the infertility aspect,
Yeah.
was it hard for you to be around people like myself? I don't care, like it's fine. Or other friends when they would share about hard aspects of motherhood?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt
diminishing.
Yeah. It felt really hard. Like I think I had to honestly sort of distance myself from friends who either had babies or who were pregnant, because again, like all I wanted was to have a baby in my arms. And I think also like we tried to keep living. Like we still like, we're very much the type of people who were like, okay, like we're still going to like see our friends and see our family and do things and be like, but
you also had to set boundaries.
Yeah. And like protect your peace. And I think that was the hardest thing, is I felt like I was constantly in fight or flight mode of receiving a pregnancy announcement or a photo of like this perfect family on whatever on Instagram, and everything or even like going into the office and someone being like, oh, my daughter's learning to potty train or whatever the thing. I'm like, that's what I want.
Right. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Do you have tips for anyone in your shoes? I believe you deleted social media at one point. Like, what would be your recommendation for people?
Yeah, I definitely deleted social media. And I know that you've been like open about being like, if I'm not the right follow for you right now, that's okay.
Unfollow, mute, block, do what you got to do.
I definitely did that with like people who were pregnant or had babies. I honestly surrounded myself with my friend group who doesn't have children yet. And it was definitely like a weird time just identity wise. Like because I had been pregnant and like I felt like I was like a mom without a baby. And so I definitely did. And I've deleted social media for a while, like for periods of time. I would like try to just put my phone away for like a weekend and really like I would say honestly limiting my phone.
Yeah. Because it's your extension to everyone else's experiences that are the things that you want. I also will say, like, I think telling your partner things that you can and cannot handle and having them kind of relay. Like, I remember Brandon calling and being like, guys, please just don't invite us to your son's birthday party. Like, we can't, it's not the right, it's just not in the cards right now. And I don't want to have her feel guilty of declining it. And, that, I think, taking that off your plate can be very beneficial. I don't even know if you did. You know you did that?
100%. Yeah.
When you distance yourself from certain people because it was just too much, have you found, was there any difficulty repairing those relationships?
So that was also something that I like really grieved, is like I, like for us, for example, like I wanted to be with a baby. Like I wanted to be pregnant. I wanted, like, that's what I wanted. And so I was grieving that wasn't where I was and that it was too painful to be around it.
Yeah.
I think that I just kept reminding myself that real friendships can go through what's the word I'm looking for?
Phases.
Yeah. And
ups and downs.
Yeah. And that a real friend, we will have a repair and like we will, it's okay if we're not like what you said in the episode of with us, is that like I didn't need to be that person for you.
Absolutely
to
not.
Talk about like pregnancy and all the things.
And I'm proud of you for accepting that, where I said this in the episode of Dr. Burr, but I had said to you, like, I don't need you to hold my hand during this. I don't need you to check in on me. I don't need you to be here for any of this.
Yeah.
Like I have people that I can rely on.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of you for taking that.
Yeah.
Because you needed that boundary.
Yeah.
I talked about this in the episode, and we've talked about this.
Yeah.
But I called you to tell you I was pregnant because I thought this deserves a phone call, like, whatever. Looking back, I wish I had sent it as a text so that you could process it in the way that you wanted to.
Yeah.
What would you recommend someone do if they're telling someone who's going through fertility that they're pregnant?
Yeah. I think, first of all, there's no guidebook. Right. Like it's really hard. And I think the hardest thing is being caught off guard. I think texting is just allowing the person time to metabolize it on their own terms, because my immediate reaction was like I bursted into tears.
Right. Which is valid.
Then I felt guilty.
But I hope I made you feel like you shouldn't feel guilty.
I know. But and I think just, again, like that feeling when you're going through fertility, when you want fertility challenges, when you want something so badly, it's always on your mind.
Right.
Like constant. And so again, you're in this like fight or flight mode where anything can hit you and be a trigger. And I noticed every single pregnant person that walked by me. And so I think sending a text so that they can digest it on their own terms and not have to feel like they're like working through it while reacting. And then also ideally doing it at a time when like, they're home or not like about to go out to dinner, to the office or whatever. Because I do think like it really does throw you. Like there were so many times where I like received like an ultrasound photo like on Instagram or a group text.
Right.
I think that's another thing is for a good friend being aware in like a group text setting or at like a group dinner or that type of thing, and kind of like helping a little bit to like feel like
like have a separate group chat when you're going to send an ultrasound. You don't need to be on that.
Yeah.
How have you found post this entire process that you found like, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's pain in
purpose and pain.
Yeah, thank you. How have you found through this process now on the other side of it, like purpose in your pain that you experienced?
Yeah. I remember feeling so overwhelmed and so hopeless when I first started the surrogacy process. And people say like, it's going to take years for you to have your baby in your arms. And it just felt so never ending and so daunting. And since then, I've talked to like a handful of women who are going through fertility challenges, who are figuring out if surrogacy is the best next step for them. And I had someone who's actually a friend of yours talk to me when I was in that stage. I think providing just a soundboard for your feelings are normal. This doesn't have to be as daunting and overwhelming as you think it is. Like, it is a step-by-step process. You will get through it. You will get to the other end. Like 2 years ago, I never thought that I would have like healthy 8-month-old twins right now. Like, you will get to the other side. And even though it feels so never ending, you can do it and you will have a baby.
Yeah. And I hope that's what I kept instilling in you in the beginning. I do remember being like, it may not be the process that you envisioned, but at the end of the day, you will have a child.
Yeah.
Whether it's through surrogacy, whether it's through adoption.
Yeah.
Adoption, like, you will get that baby.
Yeah.
And you will be that mom.
I just think that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And talking to someone who's been at the lowest of lows and has lived it all, like, I hope that provides some comfort, or at least can like be a sounding board and answer questions. I think
it's so important because no one can understand it unless they've been through it at all.
Yeah.
I can hear you talk about it. I can watch your experience. I will never understand what you went through.
Yeah.
I love you so much, and thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank you,
It's so
Cam.
fun watching you be a mom.
Thank you, Cam. You're the best.
Love you.
Love you.